I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Village Board for October 9th, 2018. Can you please join us for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Village Clerk, would you please call the roll?
President DeSimone,
Here.
Trustee Carmona,
Here.
Trustee Franz,
Here.
Trustee Jaworska,
Here.
Trustee Penicola,
Here.
Trustee Perez.
Here.
That's 6. We have a quorum.
At this time, we have a presentation from ETC Institute on survey results. Evan, you want to warm it up?
Yeah, so on a semi-regular basis, we run 2 surveys village-wide within the village. One is a residential survey, which we'll be discussing tonight, and then the other is a commercial business survey, which is a survey that goes out to different businesses in town. We've been doing these for about 4 years, I think 5 years maybe, and we alternate how often we do them. So we've conducted our 3rd residential survey using ETC. ETC is based out of Kansas City, correct? Yes. And this is what they do. So it's blind. The village doesn't get to pick which businesses or residents we interview, although sometimes I wish we could. But ETC does this double blind, and I'll hand it off to ETC to talk about their presentation as well as some of the statistical things that they found.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you, everybody. Thank you to the trustees, Village President DeSimone. Thank you so much for having us here. I think we did a great job of selecting residents this year. I mean, randomly selecting residents this year because the results are just phenomenal, and I'll get into that in just a moment. As Evan mentioned, I'm from Kansas, Olathe, Kansas, just right outside of Kansas City. We're kind of the leaders in market research for this type of community surveys, business surveys. We do a lot of different types of surveys, but primarily community research. So either basic community type stuff or parks and recreation is kind of our niche. We do a lot of work in the Chicagoland area, so we're familiar with the region. And we have some regional benchmarks that I'll share as well when I kind of discuss the results. But the purpose of most of our surveys, and the purpose of this survey specifically, is to objectively assess citizen satisfaction, and that's what we were able to do with our random sample. So we randomly select a sample of residents from the village, mail out surveys. Residents can either fill out those surveys online or mail those paper surveys back in, and we'll tabulate the results and then analyze the results. We also measure long and short-term trends. It's always a plus when you have the same firm conducting the survey because we're able to measure our 2011 versus 2014 trends. And we have the survey instrument. We can measure apples to apples that way. Another major perk of our survey is that it helps determine priorities, and I'll briefly go over that. Something to keep in mind when I get to the priorities, the satisfaction ratings were so good that we did have some high priorities, but everybody should keep in mind that the satisfaction ratings were still good. So these are just really important items to village residents. Not that they're doing poorly, but they're just very important. And then we can compare Bensonville's performance regionally and nationally, and that's really a plus of doing this type of work with ETC Institute because we just have such a large footprint, and we do a national survey and a regional survey throughout the United States, and we'll go over some of those results as well. It was a 7-page survey. As Evan mentioned, this is the 3rd time we've done this for the village. Again, we do it by mail, phone, online, and it's a randomly selected representative sample of households. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes to conduct the survey, to take it yourself. We had a goal of 400. We collected 452 surveys, which just goes to show how involved the community is. Our sampling procedures are very precise, so when we sample for 400 in a community this size, we typically hit that mark and just barely go over. But to get about 50 surveys extra says something about the community. All the results in the presentation and in the report have a margin of error of almost 5%, about 4.5%, which is pretty common for a community this size. So everything, if we did this survey 100 times, 95 out of 100 times, we'd get these results plus or minus 4.5%. We had a good representation of village respondents. When I first saw this map, I freaked out a little bit until I realized that there's an industrial area up north. So I panicked a little bit, but great representation, male, female, pretty much evenly split. Census Bureau numbers match the race and ethnicity as well, and that's really what we're aiming for, is that we get a representative number of both male, female, gender, household type, and things like that, and we did. So kind of the bottom line up front is kind of an old military term. Overall satisfaction has improved 9% compared to 2014, which is very positive. I would say a significant change is usually anything about 4 or 5% or more. So to double that is very, very, very good. Respondents have a positive perception of the village. 53% indicated they were either very satisfied or satisfied with the value they receive for their village taxes and fees, 15% above the national average. And it's just one of those questions that it's tough to ask. It's good that villages and communities across the country ask that question, but responses are typically much lower, as you can tell by, kind of smashing the national average by 15%. 76% of village respondents indicated that the village is an excellent or good place to live, and that's 6% above the national average, so doing very well there. Fire, ambulance, and police services continue to exceed expectations. When I say that, they're exceeding expectations in the sense that they're not a high priority because satisfaction is so high, but at the same time, they both exceeded the national and regional averages in most areas. And the top priorities for residents continues to be the overall value received for village taxes and fees. And that was the top priority in 2014. And I want to kind of get into that just very briefly. This is a priority that does not top the list in every community. This is something odd. Most of the time it's streets and street maintenance. I'll get into that in a little bit. But the overall value received for village taxes and fees to be at the top priority list, it's very important to respondents. It's very important to village residents, and it just shows that the village is doing a very good job kind of being forthcoming outright, and basically the perception of how the village spends the taxes and fees. It's a very positive perception village-wide. So some of these notes here are difficult for me to see back here, but the overall satisfaction with major village services is the slide that we're looking at here. The blue line is Bensenville, the red line is the Great Lakes regional average, and the yellow line is the US average. I marked the items where the village is kind of setting the standard both nationally and regionally. And I'm going to go over a few of these results, and I'm going to point out how well the village performed since 2014 on these. So the first one is quality of customer service you receive from city employees, plus 10% from 2014, which is pretty phenomenal. Maintenance of village buildings and facilities, plus 1%. Efforts for the village to be prepared for emergencies, plus 16%. So something definitely went on there in the last few years. The flow of traffic and traffic management in the village, which is something that we don't see that high of a result on usually. 71% is extremely high in my opinion for that, plus 16% over the last 4 years, which is just phenomenal. 7% plus from 2014 on the maintenance of village streets, which kind of goes with the flow of traffic. And then value that you receive for your tax dollars and fees, again, 14% difference from 2014, and just kind of just smashing both the national and regional averages for that item. Next one is we're going to talk about perceptions. I think this is really, these are the hard to touch, hard to feel things. When we ask somebody to tell us what their perception is, it could be all over the board. But to see how well you guys performed, not only from 2014, but from national and regional perspectives, really just goes to show how well the village is doing at keeping perceptions high. But also they've set a standard, so people in Bensenville have a very high standard for perceptions as well, and that's something that we should keep in mind when reviewing these results, is that village members in Bensenville not only perceive the village is doing a good job, but they have very high expectations of the village, and we'll get into that. The quality of library services, plus 11 from 2014, setting the standard nationally and regionally, plus 2% from 2014 overall park district facilities. Overall failing of safety in village, plus 12% from 2014. Plus 10% from 2014 was the overall quality of public schools, and plus 6% from 2014 is the overall maintenance of private property. And those are all things that it's really tough to measure, but it's really good to ask, and to see such high perception, knowing that village respondents have a very high standard for the village and how they perform in those areas, is showing just how well the village is performing in all of those areas. We did some GIS mapping, so basically we took the home address of respondents, geocoded them, and then averaged the results to kind of get these maps. Areas that have dark blue show high levels of satisfaction or positive ratings. Any levels that are average or below average would be either in light yellow, orange, red, and we don't see much of that in any of the maps that we produced. Most residents feel either very safe or safe. There were no areas in the village of Bensenville that rated below that very safe. So everybody in the village, for the most part, feels very safe. The village is equitably, providing services for all village residents. Darker areas again indicate higher levels of satisfaction, but most areas of the village are satisfied with the overall quality of local police protection, and this is a tough one to get blue, dark blue all around, but to see that the entire village is very satisfied or satisfied goes to show a lot. the satisfaction with overall effectiveness of village communication with the public, this is something that I wanted to bring up tonight. It seems like the village is doing an excellent job of communicating with the public, and we get into a lot of communities where the way that respondents receive information and the way that they want to receive information are misaligned. Maybe residents are more in tune with social media or the website, whereas the village sends out a paper newsletter or something like that. Whatever the village of Bensenville is doing, they've really merged those two. So respondents are indicating that they're receiving information, they want to receive information, and they're being communicated with properly. A lot of that angst, community angst perceptions can be involved directly with this question. If the village isn't communicating properly with village respondents or village residents, we often see a lot lower levels of satisfaction across the board, and that's really important. We had 25 significant areas, or 25 areas that saw significant increases from 2014. I just pointed out a few that I thought were quite outstanding. I'll start with maintenance of neighborhood streets, plus 12, and I went over a few of these. Overall quality of life in the village, plus 12. Feeling of safety, plus 12. Value received for your village taxes and fees, again, plus 14. And then a couple of them that just kind of shocked me was east-west travel, plus 22%. So there must have been some public works projects that wrapped up recently. How well traffic signal systems provide effective and efficient traffic flow, again, plus 18. Again, probably public works wrapping up some projects here. As a place to raise children, plus 17. Ease of north-south travel, again, plus 14. And what we see in a lot of communities where we ask these questions and do these surveys on a regular basis is we'll see east-west travel bump up, 22%, but then north-south travel is going to go down a lot. We always try to figure out what that's going on with, and sometimes we'll meet public works officials and kind of get the answer to what's going on. But to see both those rise in a significant level is pretty awesome. And then the overall flow of traffic and traffic management in the
I
village.
think both of those would probably be attributed to the York and Irving construction.
Yeah.
That greatly improved. Now that we're done with there, it went north, south, east, west, forwards and backwards.
Yeah, so, wrapping up those projects, making sure that, all that stuff is kind of wrapped up and put away will really boost satisfaction ratings. Here are our priority investment ratings. What we do is we kind of weigh the satisfaction and importance of these items, and we kind of rate them in a way that we can analyze which ones are going to kind of give the biggest bang for the buck. As I mentioned earlier, most of these are going to be maintenance of city streets, things like that. But because village respondents were so in tune with how well the village is performing, and they have a really high standard for the village, we saw some different items kind of top our list here. And again, these aren't areas where the village is performing poorly. These are areas where the village residents think that the highest priority should be put. And so I'm not saying that anything in red is where the village is performing poorly. It's just where the village should maybe invest a little bit more time, to boost overall satisfaction. So the first one here is major village services, overall value they receive for taxes and fees. Over half of respondents were either very satisfied or satisfied with that item. So village respondents aren't dissatisfied with the overall value they're receiving. They just have a very high standard for it, and that's very important to them. Overall management of village finances kind of wraps up right up into that. And the overall maintenance of village streets, which is the one that we see really at the top of the list everywhere, kind of hit third, which is just a little bit surprising. The next one that we have here is public safety and emergency services. Again, these items were all rated, almost all of these items were rated above the national average. So again, respondents are not dissatisfied with these items, but they do think they're important, and that's why they topped the list. The visibility of police in neighborhoods, the village efforts to prevent crime, the enforcement of speed limits in neighborhoods, and the quality of animal control. Quality of animal control is kind of an outlier. People don't oftentimes deal with animal control, so those people that did probably had a negative experience just with a loose animal in their neighborhood or something like that. It kind of sways those results. But those top three, again, very good satisfaction ratings, as we can see. It's just village respondents have a high, they have a high expectation for the way the village performs, and these things are just very important to them. The last one that we did here is public works, maintenance of neighborhood streets, and mosquito abatement, adequacy of street lighting, and condition of sidewalks were all high priorities. The mosquito abatement is something that I've never seen before. This is the only community that we survey that does that. So that's great.
It's because they found out we have a mosquito liaison.
Yes.
Is that right?
Commissioner, I believe is my title. Mosquito Abatement Commissioner.
So, that probably topped the list. Last winter was more mild than normal, so we've been having a lot of mosquito problems in Kansas. I think we've had a few West Nile virus cases recently in Kansas and Missouri. So that one makes sense that it topped the list. That's just a high priority for any community that's doing that type of work. Maintenance of neighborhood streets, you know, everybody lives on a neighborhood street, so that's going to be something that everybody thinks is important. Not everybody's going to be satisfied, and I was talking about that with a couple other people, you know, as the street maintenance schedule kind of focuses on different parts of the city. If your neighbors maybe get a newly paved street or something like that, you know, certain areas of the town are going to see that and wonder why their street wasn't paved quite yet. And not everybody understands that cyclical process that we go through. So that can influence those results as well. But as I said, overall, these results are phenomenal. The village should be very proud of what they've done over the last 4 years to improve these results. Again, the village of Bensonville has very high expectations. Residents are expecting a lot from the village, and I think you guys are really delivering right now. So with that, I'll take any questions if anybody has questions.
Board, do you guys have any questions?
Just a couple things I want to add out of looking over that survey. And I think you mentioned this one, 76% said Bensonville is a good place to live. 74% said that they would recommend living in Bensonville to a friend.
Which is plus 10%.
92% feel safe in their neighborhood during the day. 74% of Bensonville residents who answered the question if they support the annexation of unincorporated Bensonville properties in order to grow the village, 74%.
Wow.
80% of residents feel that the village is headed in the right direction. So, and I know a couple slides back, the things that the residents are wanting us to address, like the streetlights and mosquito abatement. I mean, we're on that already. I mean, we're working on that as we speak. So we're proactive on this end, and I'm happy with the numbers that came out from the surveys. I think it's a great measuring tool.
We're going to keep doing it. Probably every 2 or 3 years we'll do it. So the next survey we do will be for the commercial districts. We look forward to that one. I do just want to thank the board. You know, 80% of the respondents indicated they believe the village is headed in the right direction. To get 80% of any group of people of any size to agree on something is impressive. I think it goes a lot to your stewardship that we're going the right direction. My only concern as a village manager is trying to top these numbers in future years. That's going to be difficult, but that's what we get paid for, and we'll endeavor to do so. So thank you, board, for your leadership. It means a lot to us. I also want to thank the village manager's office staff, Steve and Mary, for coordinating this with you. I know it was a bit of an undertaking, so thank you guys. And also staff at large. I think the customer service numbers were phenomenal, you know, excess of 70, 75, 80%. We do deliver some of the best customer service I've ever seen of any town. And if that customer service isn't delivered, we address it right away, and we train our staff to do so. So thank you, staff, for running your departments in such a professional manner. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
At this time, we'll move to public comment. Does anyone wish to address the board? If so, please approach the podium and state your name. Do we have anybody?
No.
This will conclude public comment. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the September 25th, 2018 Village Board meeting?
You have a motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Are there any modifications to the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the minutes are now approved. The next item of business is to approve the warrant in the amount of $629,016.62. Is there a motion to approve the warrant?
You have a motion?
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the warrant? Please call the roll.
Trustee Carmona?
Yes.
Trustee Franz?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworska?
Yes.
Trustee Pena Cola?
Yes.
Trustee Perez?
Yes.
That's 5.
The motion carries and the warrant is now approved. There are no items on the consent agenda. We're moving on to a resolution authorizing the execution of a licensing agreement with Bar Down Pro Shop LLC. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
You have a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
There being a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Evan?
Yeah, so I'll Todd jump in here, but our ice rinks are profit centers for us. We know this. Every dollar, as I say it all the time, every dollar we raise at the ice rinks is a dollar we don't have to tax our residents. So delivering high quality ice rinks is an important endeavor for us. We recently had the previous operator of the Pro Shop, which services skates and apparel and stuff like that, go out of business. So I tasked Todd with backfilling that space, because it's an important value-added benefit for all of our customers there. So I'll let Todd go into how we identified this as well as the terms of the agreement.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for hearing this item in front of a board meeting before committee. Obviously, it's important to staff well as the person that proposed this, or gave us this proposal, to get open as soon as possible. The current space has been vacant since June 1st. There's been no contact with the former tenant, but we do get plenty of complaints that we don't have anybody to sharpen skates or provide tape or minor equipment needs for the people coming into the building. I think one of the things that tournament companies and event holders look for, in particular, is do we have a full-service pro shop? This agreement does outline specific hours that basically are tailor-made to our prime hours of operation. Saturdays, I think they're from 8 o'clock to 5 p.m. They would probably like to stay later than that. On Saturdays and Sundays throughout the week, I believe they wanted 5 till 9 p.m. And that's pretty much when the bulk of our customers are in the building. It is a 1-year initial term. The rent would be $1,000 per month with a series of 4 1-year renewals. They are also purchasing the village-owned inventory in that shop for a price of $5,000. The bulk of the value includes an embroidery machine as well as a automated skate sharpener. And that's it.
Right, so this is a family that grew up at the Edge, so they're local, and I think they do have some experience in this line of work, so I think this is a great fit for us, and we should approve this post haste.
Does anybody have any questions? Can you please call the roll?
Trustee Carmona?
Yes.
Trustee Franz?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworska?
Yes.
Trustee Pena Cola?
Yes.
Trustee Perez?
Yes.
That's 5.
The motion carries and the resolution is approved. Moving on to the presidential remarks. We have a proclamation recognizing the month of October 2018 for Arts DuPage. I believe I'm going to read the proclamation.
You were the clerk.
It says, Proclamation Arts DuPage, whereas the arts, culture, and humanities are the embodiment of all things beautiful and entertaining in the world, the enduring record of human achievements, and whereas the arts, culture, and humanities enhance every aspect of life in Bensenville, improving our economy, enriching our civic life, driving tourism, and exerting a profound positive influence on the education of our children. And whereas arts education research shows that the arts help to foster discipline, creativity, imagination, self-expression, and problem-solving skills, while also helping to develop a heightened appreciation of beauty and cross-culture understanding. And whereas we use the humanities, history, literature, philosophy, to explore what it means to be human. And whereas the arts, culture, and humanities play a unique and intrinsically, I don't even know what that word
sounded
is.
great.
I don't even know what that word is. Value role in the lives of I think it's even spelled wrong. Roles in the lives of our families and our country. And whereas the month of October has been recognized as Arts DuPage Month by Arts DuPage and the arts and cultural organizations in all the communities within DuPage County. Therefore, I, Frank DeSimone, Village President of Bensenville, do hereby proclaim October 2018 as Bensenville Arts DuPage Month, and call upon all citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture of DuPage County. Proclaim the 9th of October 2018. That being said, a couple other presidential.
But we gotta-
Do I have a motion to support the proclamation?
You have a motion?
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second?
There being a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Trustee Carmona?
Yes.
Trustee Pena Cola?
Yes.
Trustee Franz?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworska?
Yes.
Trustee Perez?
Yes.
That's 5.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Positive?
yeah.
All right. Motion carries. A couple other presidential remarks. This Saturday at Mohawk School / Park, because we have a little confusion going on what it's called over
The
there.
park formerly known as Mohawk School. I
Yeah, the
believe.
park formerly known as Mohawk School, which is on Hillside in Franzen, will be hosting a Coffee with the Mayor. It starts at 10 a.m. and it goes to about noon, so come on out with all your questions, concerns, and compliments.
Love compliments.
Castle Towers Coffee Tuesday at 9 a.m. All residents of Castle Towers are invited to attend.
Halloween decorating contest is in full effect. I've seen a bunch on Facebook, which are phenomenal. So nominate your home or neighbors by emailing the address, name, and picture to holidaycontest@bensenville.il.us. That concludes my presidential report. Evan, you have anything for us?
Yeah, I just have one item. The Community Development Commission has been reviewing, as we've been working cooperatively with CMAP to overhaul the village zoning code. Primarily, it's to make it more useful and readable and easier to understand for our residents and businesses. I want to just make a note of, we have issued a notice of public hearing for October 30th at 6:30 here at Village Hall in the boardroom. That public hearing will go over and take public comment for the proposed zoning changes. Additionally, and we're trying to get this in as many outlets as possible, I've got a blown-up copy of the top of the water bill. The information on that zoning hearing will be on the top of your next water bill as it comes out. We're going to keep trying to advertise this, so please, board, get the word out when you talk to residents of the zoning hearing. Residents at home, tell your neighbors, bring your neighbors. It's a fun time for everybody. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is there a village attorney's report?
There is no report, Mr. President.
Is there any unfinished business to come before the board tonight? Is there any new business to come before the board tonight? Is there a need for executive session?
There is none.
There's none.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
You have a motion.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.